It sounds easy just to say accept it. It's not, I promise you.
It's not easy. That's the battle of it.
But the more we practice the acceptance and the surrender, the easier it becomes. There are meditations, incredible meditations, to help you get to a place of acceptance. But what we find when we do accept is that things soften. They soften, and going back to that thing of, you're not going to lose your emotions by practicing meditation and journaling. But what you will notice is that you ride the wave.
Yeah.
And there's a crest and a fall that happens a little bit quicker than when we're in the waves trying to fight them. They stay for much longer and it feels much harder and we're treading water. Whereas if we can hop on a surfboard and ride them, we ride them out.
Such a good
we come
way
back into the shore and everything's okay again.
Until the next wave.
Until the next wave. But we got this. We're strong. We've got the tools.
Welcome to the Mentality Podcast. We're recording at the incredible Wheatwood Hall Hotel podcast studio. This is a podcast that goes way beyond stigma. We talk about men's mental health and mindset. We encourage the type of conversation that will open you up to another way to live life, another way to see yourself and the world around you. If you are ready for that, you're in the right place. I'm Stevie Ward and I'm an ex-professional rugby league player and captain. And now I guess I'm a bit of a podcaster, a speaker, actor, writer, entrepreneur. I'm still working all that out. But at Mentality, we help men take control of their mindset by teaching them to find purpose, resilience, and what I believe is the new success, inner peace. That sounds good. If you are that guy who is waking up to the fact that they need to do something different in life and the same old habits aren't working for you, it might be time to step up. If you want to start your journey with us, you can go to mentality.co.uk/coaching to join the best team you have ever seen. Thanks for joining, guys. Thank you for joining. We've got about 14 cameras on us. It's the first time we've ever done anything to 14 cameras at the same time. But it looks all right. We've got a good setup. Thank you, everyone, for joining us on Instagram, for joining us on Zoom, and also for joining us on YouTube as well. So we've got quite a few going on. But today, what we're going to do is we're going to learn how to start journaling. If you've been thinking about it, if you've been suggested it, if you're wondering about what to do, how to start, the best way to get something out of it. And we're going to talk a little bit about something at the end, which I like to go through, how to get through emotions, how to stop overthinking, and all these different sorts of things. So one thing that we do to start off within Mentality, within some of the bits that I've done and some of the bits that Hannah's done, we do a 3-word check-in. So I'll introduce Hannah, I'll introduce what we're going to do today, but first, just have a think how you are feeling right now, or have a feel for how you're feeling right now. Don't think how you're feeling, but just where you are on a Sunday morning at 10 a.m. on a live podcast, live Q&A. How are you feeling? You might be hungover, you might be tired, you might be stressed, you might be anxious. The beauty of the 3-word check-in is to just check in with how you are, literally, and to just take a moment to reflect where you are in the day. We never do that. We never consciously taught to check in with ourselves. But also, as Hannah probably will attest to, it's realising that it's all transient and it will change. You're not going to be hungover forever. You're not going to be stressed forever. And unfortunately, you're not going to be euphoric forever. But it's all testing it out, and it's all putting it out there. So have a think about a 3-word check-in for how you feel in this moment, but also have a think about why you're here today, why you fancy having a crack, but what you want to get out of the journaling workshop. So have a little think about that. Have a bit of time to write down those 3 words, and have a little bit of time to write down what you're thinking. And in the meantime, I will introduce Hannah. So Hannah is someone who I met at a yoga retreat, funny enough. I love my yoga. And Hannah is a psychologist. She's a qualified psychologist, but also a yoga and meditation teacher. So Hannah's been doing loads of work with us at Mentality, but also she's doing her old bits at work too, down in London. So, but yeah, Hannah, tell us a little bit about yourself and why you fancy coming on today.
Well, as Stevie said, I met him at Val de Moses, which is a beautiful yoga retreat in Portugal that my cousins run, actually. And it's funny, we got chatting a few evenings and quite quickly the conversations turned a little deeper. And we got to explore some really, really cool wisdoms, both yoga and psychology, and kind of, I think where I come in is I see myself as bridging that gap between the ancient philosophy and then the more modern neuroscience. So my degree was in psychology and sports science, and then from there I went on a bit of a journey, training to be a personal trainer, and then a Pilates instructor, and then a sports therapist, and then a yoga teacher, and then finally a meditation teacher. And I think this last year especially, I have been practicing and teaching meditation to all sorts of groups of people. And I've just really felt, or I've never felt this way before, where I really feel like this is my calling. And so I want to be sharing these little ditties of wisdom. And within the meditation practice comes the journaling, which is what we're going to discuss today.
Brilliant, brilliant. So thank you, Anna. And guys, just to give you, should we give them 30 seconds to think about a 3-word check-in and a bit of why you'd set down today and what you aim to get out of it right now. We'll give you just a minute, guys, to do that. So quick fire. How are you feeling? What you want to get out of it? And then we will go into a little bit of a meditation. Yeah. So, yeah, take some time, guys. Take that minute, and yeah, feel into it. I'll do my 3-word check-in live. 3-word check-in. How am I feeling today?
I'll put you on the spot now.
Yeah, I'm feeling quite excited because live makes you like you're all on. Like I've not done this much, so I'm excited, bit nervous, but ready to do a bit of a meditation. I'm looking forward to it.
Cool.
So we're going to plunge everyone into a meditation right now. And I get to sit back and do it because Hannah's leading it.
Yeah.
Cool. So guys, if you're ready to take on something you've not done before, 10 minutes meditation we're going to go with right now, just before we crack on with the content of journaling to get us in the right space. So feel into the 3-word check-in and away you go, Hannah.
Cool. So I've chosen to do what we call a heartfulness practice today. And the reason behind that is that meditation tradition speaks to this notion that our true self, our authentic self, our clearest reality, if you like, lies within the heart. So within the heart is this space unclouded by judgment, experience, emotion, or thought. And when we move from the heart, we are our most authentic self. We're in tune with what we're really doing here on this earth, and we're not caught up in thoughts or what society or conditioning tells us. We're out of the chatter of the mind and into that spacious, intuitive, and feeling heart. So when you've had a bad day or you're feeling a little reactive or maybe bitter or, angry at someone perhaps, you're not going to be making the best decisions because probably those decisions are clouded by story. But at our heart center, we're unclouded by experience and we sink into a place of clarity, calm, and ease. So what is it? It's going to be a short breathing practice and then followed by a hands to heart, just tuning into the physical heart space. And that might be, for you, the physical heart, so the left side of the chest. Or maybe if you're a more spiritual person, it might resonate more to bring your hands to the center of the chest. But what's really cool to know that when we do this practice, studies show that within 2 minutes, every system in our entire body begin to work in perfect harmony. So the cardiovascular system, the heart rate, the blood pressure, the lymphatic system, every system within your body harmonizes and goes into what we call homeostasis, perfect balance. And the other cool thing to know is that our heart gives off more frequency and more signals than our brain. So our heart is like a powerhouse. That's important to know, that it must be important if it's giving off more energy than the brain. And in fact, our heart is created or is formed before the brain is formed. So when we're forming in our mummy's tummy, our heart is the first thing that is formed. So how are we going to do the practice? A short breathing practice. We'll be breathing in for a count of 4, pausing for 2, and then breathing out for 6. The longer exhale helps to calm the nervous system. And then we're going to build that to a 4-4-8 count. So if you are pregnant or you're trying to get pregnant, please don't hold the breath. Just breathe in for a shorter breath and out for a longer breath. And then we'll bring the hands to the heart. So if you've never practiced meditation before, don't worry. This is for everybody. If there's any dizziness, just lose the breathing and connect to the heart space. So let's begin.
Let's do it.
Let's do this. So first of all, find your seat. And you don't have to be sat cross-legged like a yogi on the floor. You are more than welcome to sit on a chair. Feet hip-width apart, grounded. The spine is long. The belly is relaxed. The shoulders just dropping away from the ears. The crown of the head lifting tall. And then just tune into the breath. Breathing in and out through the nose, mouth remains closed. And so that we're all on the same page, take a casual breath in, and then exhale everything out. Together we breathe in for a count of 4, 2, 3, 4, hold 2, exhale 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale 4, 2, 3, 4, hold 2, exhale 6, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Keep going like this, your own internal count. Breathe in for 4, hold for 2, and then nice, long, slow, steady exhale for 6. Next time you hold the breath in, drop the chin slightly down towards the chest. Notice a warmth, a vibrancy building in the heart space. And then as you exhale, you can slowly lift the chin so that it's back to parallel with the ground. So you can stay at this 4-2-6 count, or those of you who want to stretch the breath out a little, take it out to 4-4-8. So you breathe in for 4, drop the chin to the chest, holding the breath for 4, and then a long, slow, smooth exhale, releasing the breath and releasing that chin lock as you breathe out. Good. Take one more round of breath like this. Your own internal count. Counting steady and even. And then begin to wind the breath back. So we're where we started, breathing in 4, holding 2, exhaling 6. Notice a warmth, energy building at the center of the chest. Perhaps a gradual calming and soothing sensation in the rest of the body. On the next round of breath, drop the inhale retention so that you're just breathing in for 4 and out for 6. And then allow that counting to dissolve altogether. Bring the left hand to the heart space, right hand on top of left. Drop the chin again. And just take a moment to tune into the sensations of the heart, the feeling body. Pulsing, beating, sense of aliveness beneath the hands. A warmth or a presence in the palms of the hands. And as you take a moment to consider your own beating heart, consider too the beating hearts of the people in the building you're in, of all the other people tuning in and breathing into the heart space with us today. Mentality community. And then all the beating hearts in the entire country. Beating, pulsing together. And take a moment to become aware of that sense of warmth and compassion as you consider this. A feeling of softening. Just take a moment to be in this space. Nowhere else to go. Nothing else to do other than just be. Just be. You're ready, release the hands to the thighs, palms face up. Take a moment to really soak in the nutrients of your practice. Sense of openness, kindness, love and compassion. Sense of that innate goodness which resides within each and every one of us. Really drink it in, soak in that experience, sense it in every fiber of your being. And then take a couple of deeper breaths. Have the intention to breathe right down to tips of fingers and tips of toes. Perhaps you just give them a little wiggle, bringing some movement back to the body. And in your own time, blinking open the eyes. and allowing the light back in. Take your time.
Oh, I feel relaxed now. Shall we just all sit here in silence for a bit? Yeah, that was lovely. Thank you very much for that, Hannah. That was great. That was great. And I'm just wondering, and I just want to sort of ask of people, whether they're on Instagram Live, whether they're on Zoom, and YouTube, if that's still going, how everyone's 3-word check-in would be now. So, yeah, how are you feeling after that? Has it shifted anything? Has it progressed anything? Has it highlighted anything more to you? Just for yourself to understand the difference and in how you're feeling, and how temperamental the emotions and feelings are. I think my 3-word check-in would be very alert as I was going through it, because I'd probably be alert and maybe a little bit vulnerable because I've never meditated on live whatever this is before, on the Instagram store. But just gratitude as well. I think I loved the part which was the beating heart of the people in the building, the beating heart of the people, out there, because it really relates to what I guess the message is, and I guess it's becoming more of a popular message, but it's something which has taken a lot of time to shift the oil tanker, in the fact that there's stuff that you can do, with your mind, which is literally like you're thinking about the heart beating hearts. Like, it's almost just putting down those neural pathways or the tracks in your brain to think more like that, and for a lot of people it might be very new, but I just see it as just repeating those things and consistency, just like you get told in a physical setting. If you want to be more of a calm person, if you want to be more of a grateful and centered person, if you want to see the world a bit better and a bit brighter, and a bit more generous, then there's the work that you can do for yourself, whether that's through meditation, whether it's through journaling, which is what we're going to come on to. Those practices is something that I've made myself get into the habit of doing it every day, because I see it as my sort of training to be able to feel better, to be able to have better quality of thoughts, which inevitably gives you a better quality of life. So, what a beautiful meditation. Thank you, Hannah. Just a long way of saying thank you.
You're so welcome.
Okay, guys, so just a little interlude here. I want to tell you about a year where I struggled to sleep. I struggled to sleep because I got burgled twice. The first time, they fish hooked for my keys through my porch letterbox, got the car keys, drove off in the car. The second time I'd left the house without my car, they had broke into my house again to find my car keys. But instead they took my grand final ring from 2017. I was gutted. And you know what I did? I rang UK Red Security. These guys are a leading UK company specialising in systems to suit commercial fire and security needs. Mine, Rob Burrows, a lot of the other lads as well, use these guys. So whether you're looking for a burglar alarm or CCTV system for your business, a comprehensive fire safety system, or 24-hour cover to respond to security alarms at your premises, at your house, it's class. I've got an alarm which I can set on my phone. I can look at the CCTV on my phone up to date, even when I am not in the house. These guys will certainly help you out. I want to thank you for helping me sleep again, and I also want to thank them for the continued support for Mentality. Cheers, guys, and let's get back to the show. We're going to talk about the difference in check-in, how that might have changed, shifted, but also what we're here for, and what we've set up nicely to talk about is journaling. So Hannah, I'm really interested into understanding your practices, everything about, why you do it, and understanding what tools you use to get through emotion and how you might want to feel a bit clearer and a bit better in the day. So the best question to start off with is journaling. Why do you do it?
There are so many benefits to journaling, and for me, I was just saying to Stevie before this conversation that it keeps me going. It's really been a life-changing practice. And I think maybe I'm going to go back before that question and just ask you guys a question before I go on to the benefits, and ask what did you put down as to what you wanted to get out of the session? Because we can start there by explaining so many things with what language you've used. So it's likely that most people would have put something in future tense. I would like to feel calmer. I would like to be able to deal with my emotions. I wish I could deal with my emotions better. But everything is in the future tense, and the future is uncertain. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. So when we write in that way, we're almost telling our mind that we're uncertain about whether that thing is going to happen. And there's a really amazing neuroscientist called Dr. Joe Dispenza, and he talks about something called the future present. So if we can spin that or rotate that answer to being something that is in the present moment right now, we're essentially claiming it. We're telling our mind and our body that we already know that exists within us, and we have the capacity to behave or act or think in that way. So what I'd like you to do first, before I tell you the benefits, is to go back and reword what you wanted to get out of the session so that it's in the present tense. Claim it. Make it real now, and then it will be real, because you'll play into that. That's naturally how the mind works. We seek out the experiences that we believe in. So if we can believe in what we've written down, we will seek out the experience to affirm that. So, for example, say you wrote, I want to be able to deal with my emotions better. You could instead write, I deal with my emotions, or I am level and calm, or whatever it is you want to experience. If you claim it and you say, I am that already, that's a great place to start. Cool. So the benefits are so many, but one that Stevie mentioned already was that by writing things down, it helps us to see that moment to moment things change. How you feel in the morning, in fact, we've just experienced it now. Our 3-word check-in, pre-meditation and post-meditation, has proven that things change. And yeah, it's not even like, sometimes we might get stuck in something for a day, a month, a week. But we can recognize that even in a very small moment, something can change. The second awesome thing to mention is that it helps us to process our thoughts and even to laugh at them, to see how sometimes irrational they can be. And labeling our thoughts and emotions creates space. So once we've written down what it is, we kind of can see it on paper. It's not us. We realize that we are not our thoughts. We are not our emotions. We are that silent observer. We're able to step back and be the awareness. That's where our true self lies. And in doing this, we track patterns. So I journal every single day. I do a brain splurge before bed because it just helps me. It helps me sleep. It helps me get headspace. I find that once it's on paper, it's out of my mind, and there's much more clarity. As humans, we have around 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day. And 95% of those thoughts are reruns of thoughts we've already had. I let that fact settle because that's a big one. 95% of thoughts we had yesterday. They're not new thoughts, and we can't create change from that space. So getting it written down allows us to see those patterns of thinking so that we can create change. Something else really important that we've touched upon today already is that feeling of gratitude. Living helps us to live with an abundant mindset. And when we're living with an abundant mindset, just like what we were talking about, the language earlier, we draw in what we believe. If we are feeling like life is abundant, we see more abundance everywhere, because abundance breeds abundance. Gratitude breeds gratitude. And some of you may have heard of Brene Brown. She's possibly one of my idols, legend. I would say. She's a legend. She's a bloody legend. She talks about how unless we experience gratitude, we can't experience joy. Gratitude is the precursor to joy, if you like. And so if we want to experience more joy, we must experience gratitude. So gratitude is one of the practices that I use every single day. I do my 3-word thing is generally my 3 things I'm grateful for, and we'll go through a practice. In fact, I'm going to tell you the practice that I do every day in a moment. But there's just so many more benefits to go through.
I know, there's so much.
There's so many. Just
connecting to like what you're talking about there, Hannah, like the actual act of writing stuff down does, I think, provide that space, or it gives you that release. And it almost could be cathartic, if that's the right word to say. At times, cathartic to get it down instead of it keeping... I feel like once you've wrote something down, it has less power to keep grabbing you and to keep pushing you, and you know, whatever goes on your mind is less, has less fuel behind it, or it's got just less... It's almost like you've... And I'll go through a bit of a thing later on, but almost like you've took the thought out of your head and it's got less... traction or friction, if that makes sense. And the idea there, you're talking about gratitude being the precursor to joy, and feeling and sort of stating that I am this, or I'm this currently now in the present moment, because that's all there is without getting too woo on you. But that works in a scientific way, as you probably know, like the reticular activating system. I loved it when I saw this, but the reticular activating system, so the RAS for short, is basically a bundle of neurons in your brain, which acts as a bit of a nightclub bouncer for your brain. So it basically, whatever you deem as important is the filter. So whatever you focus on is the filter. So if you're sat in a restaurant and everyone's probably had it before, someone's shouted the name or something that sounds like the name, and straight away they're looking at what's going on. It's because your brain is noticing that your name's important. And if you've got a business plan that's really important to you, that you want to get something made, you all of a sudden start picking things up from different conversations, and whatever you're really interested in, there might be a conversation or a word that's happening. That word will go, right, okay, well, what's this? So the reason why I'm saying this is, if you deem it important every night, every morning, to understand what you're thankful for, what you're grateful for, what happened that was good in the day, what connections you had, that means that your reticular activating system is gradually becoming more like, okay, well, I need to start looking for the good stuff rather than the negative stuff. Because we're always going back to the negative because it's survival. But I think there's a little bit of training that you can do to sort of set your intentions for what the RAS will highlight to you and bring more into your life, I guess.
Yeah, talking more on that, actually, if you guys haven't heard of a guy called Rick Hansen, he has written some great books, one called Resilience, one called Hardwiring Happiness. And he talks about this in a way that we can recondition our mind. So we are conditioned to have what we call this negativity bias. We're 5 times more likely in our makeup, in the way that we're wired, to pick out negative things than we are positive. So that means we've got some work to do. I'm sorry, it's not easy, but there are millennia of years of reconditioning to do, because back in the day, we needed that survival mechanism. We needed to pick up on the negative to avoid that situation again. But we're not being chased down the road by what am I trying to say? By a tiger, whatever.
Hopefully not.
No. But we have got that reconditioning to do. So we've got to reinforce something 5 times in a positive way to even just cancel out and go neutral. So there's, work to be done, and that can happen through meditation, that can happen through journaling. There's so many fantastic tools on mentality. I'm part of it, and I've put some of my yoga videos on there too. And there's so many tools on there where we can begin to build that positivity, so that we can shift from a negativity bias into a positivity bias. Just as Stevie says, we hardwire the brain into a different.
That's it. That's the work. That's the work to do. That's the work that if we choose, we've got it there to train ourselves with. And dealing with emotion in specific, Hannah, how is it that you would journal? In fact, let's talk about your daily practice first. Let's talk about your daily practice first. And
we'll go daily practice, because that leads really nicely onto the emotional stuff. So my daily practice, and this might not work for you, but this is something that came about when one of my friends gave me something called the 5-minute journal. So if you want this practice laid out to make it even easier for you, go and purchase something called the 5-minute journal. And then you don't even have to write out your bullet points. But I now just do this in my book every morning and every evening. So it takes 5 minutes.
Literally.
And we know that when we start with a small habit, it's easier to continue with it. So this was where I started, and then it grew into more, just naturally snowballed. But, so pen and paper ready. Where we start. The first thing we start with is 3 things that I'm feeling grateful for today. Right here, right now. So you might want to just take a few moments now to write those 3 things. And they can be tiny. They could be, I'm grateful, like I do this in bed. So sometimes it's just like, I'm grateful I've got another 5 minutes in bed. Or I'm grateful that the sun is coming through the window. Or I'm grateful that I am going to go downstairs and make my coffee now. They can be tiny, or they could be massive. Like, I'm grateful I'm coming to chat with Stevie today. That was on my list this morning. So that's where you start. 1, 2, 3. 3 things you're grateful for. And this links really nicely back to our meditation at the beginning of the session, because the quality of the heart, the quality of appreciation is a quality of the heart. And meditation speaks to, or heartfulness meditation speaks to, that's where our true self is. So if we can already begin to tap into that space that is not veiled by conditioning or experience or thought or emotion, then we're kind of setting ourselves up for a day of more clarity and delight. The next 3 things I look forward to. So 3 things I'm grateful for, ... 3 things I'm looking forward to. Or 3 amazing things that are going to happen, because that's the language we were talking about earlier. Let's claim it. 3 things, amazing things that are going to happen today. And again, they can be small.
And it has a knock-on effect as well. Like the 3 things that I'm looking forward to today. Like if you search for your day, like forecast what's going to happen. You think about someone you're going to see, and you go, right, do you know what? I can't wait to do this with Hannah, or I can't wait to see a particular friend or relative. Once you've put that in your mind, you go there, you get there, and it's highlighted to you that this is the thing that you want to experience as something amazing or something good. So your connection, your presence with someone is straight away is optimized, because that's something that you've earmarked to do. And I just feel like it sets you up a bit better.
it's like putting on a pair of glasses and you're looking through the lenses of delight and appreciation.
Yeah. And I heard something, this is maybe a bit off topic, but I heard something the other day, like, to make the interactions that you have more fulfilling, like more present, like more interactive, and actually to care for them more. This is something a bit strange, I don't know, but like to think of, if you're going to see a parent or if you're going to see someone that you care about, instead of thinking this is just one of many, sort of think, rate how many opportunities that you're going to have. Like actually number it and say, well, I've probably got about 50 more times because life passes you by. But like if you sort of bring in a focus or attention to how fleeting these opportunities are, you're in it a lot better, if that makes sense. So that probably won't be a journaling thing, but I just think it's something good to think about.
It's exactly what it's about, though. It's about having more intention behind what you're doing. And when you have more intention behind what you're doing, you end up living life more fully. It's coming back to mindfulness. So it's not about... People think mindfulness is about you're going to turn into a blob. You're not going to have all this emotion or heightened emotion, but it's not. It's actually about being so present and so intentional that we can get more from less.
And you just make the most out of what you've got. Like it's something that's quite hard to sort of explain, but I think you just have more of a focus, and it's just you blink it into what the actual situation is. You're not thinking about what's going on social media. You're not thinking about other things that you've got to do later. Like you couple the gratitude practice or the journaling practice with the meditation, and it sort of shifts you into a more prepared and just more alive version of yourself. Does that make sense?
Certainly.
And these are things that I've done over the last few years, and there may be people, or the opinions may be like, I don't know whether to start, I don't know why to do it, but I think the further I've gone on, as like, this is something that I almost need to do if I want to be happy and I want to just make the most out of stuff. It's something that I'm just like, this is what you're doing, mate. Do you know what I mean? It's like...
Do you know what, on that, I know now. It's like you go for, once you get into exercise, you do, I don't know, however many times a week, and then you miss a week and you feel groggy and awful. It's exactly the same if you've missed your meditation practice or you've missed your journaling practice. And my partner, he says to me, like, every evening, so one of the reasons I do journaling is that I used to have quite an anxious mind. So I would have these thoughts that would just keep coming, and it's like a repetitive thought. And what I didn't understand is that the more that I push those thoughts away, the more they resist. It's like a spring. So a spring gives back the same resistance as you push against. And resisting is futile. What you resist persists. But if you can get it down on paper, you're almost letting it go. You're accepting, you're sitting with it, you're observing it. And so my boyfriend, he'll say to me, he's like, have you written in your book? He'll see me, like, he can see when I go through that process of like, I'm going insular and I'm going round and round the same persistent thought. He goes, have you written in your book? Or he goes, have you done your meds? Have you taken your medication, your natural medication?
Just do meds instead.
But yeah, so journaling is that brain dump at the end of the day. But one last thing I do in the morning, the final question, which sets me up again on that intentional path of how I want to show up for the day, is I write I am, and then I leave it blank. And some days I fill that in. Some days I just leave it. I am. I am. Like, I don't need to be anything. I already am. But some days I'll fill that in with I am compassionate. I am happy. I am content. I am relaxed. I am whatever it is I want to feel that day. and this comes back to the language, I am. So I already am that. I just need to remind myself to come back to it. And I don't know how deep you want me to go into some of the science, but I know you're interested in all this stuff.
Go on.
So.
Yeah. Give us it, go on.
So we have something called the subjective bias, where it's very similar to what you were just talking about. We essentially categorize everything we see, everything we do, every experience we have. So, for example, we'd categorize a chair as a chair in our mind, and we'd have what we call a prototype, an average of all chairs that we have ever seen in our lives. Don't worry, this is coming back to journaling, I promise.
Good chairs, some good chairs, some bad chairs.
All chairs we've ever seen in our life, and we create an average of it, and that sits in our brain somewhere. And so that when we see another chair, we know it's a chair. Does that make sense? So, but we don't just do that with chairs. We do that with colors. So however many greens I've seen in my life, I'll have like an average green so that I know when I see green outside that that's green and not blue or red or whatever. We do that with experiences as well. So if I go into a coffee shop and I see that the attendant looks at me funny, or I feel she looks at me funny, I might then, every time I go into a coffee shop, be looking for that, because my brain works in that way, like you said, to kind of match the theory that I have. So if my theory is something positive, I am content. I'm going to look for things within my environment to fit that.
Yeah. It's just training that conductor, or it's just training and giving more options, I'd say, to fill your head with the good stuff. It's like you're actually putting some conscious work in. So we'll go through the rest of the practice, daily practice, and I do the 5-minute journal too. Really easy, really quick, and I think you get to the evening.
Yeah.
Do you want to go through the evening?
Yeah. In the evening, you then write the 3 awesome things that have happened. And so often it's the 3 things you've written in the morning, because you are drawing that experience in, because you're looking for it. You're priming your mind to behave that way, or to act that way, or whatever it is that you've written down in the morning, to kind of draw those experiences in. And then you write one thing that you would change from the day. And this is where, again, we have to be a little careful with our language. Instead of writing, I wish I'd done that, or I shouldn't have done that, or I shouldn't have shouted at my boyfriend for putting the dishwasher the wrong way, or leaving the toilet seat up, or whatever it is. Classic. You say instead, I am however you wish you'd behaved. So I am calm and collected when talking about difficult things, or I approach situations with confidence, or I am okay with being vulnerable, rather than I wish I'd done that. We spin it to a positive and a future present again.
Is the worth as well, like just thinking on the words that you mentioned there, I should have done this, I should have done that. Is there a way that is it beneficial to swap the should for a could in that context? Or is that...
Okay, so here's something, that question leads so nicely onto how do you get the most out of your journaling practice? And the number one thing is it has to be what my teacher calls real to the feel. It has to be authentic. So if you write, I am calm and collected, and you don't feel calm and collected, it's not going to work. It has to be real to the feel. So if there's some baby steps you can take in between to make that affirmation, if you like, feel real and feel true to you, then playing with the language is good. I'm just trying to think of the one he uses. So here we go. This is the language. So you might say, when I'm working with sports people, sometimes I do, they might say, I want to run really fast. And so they might say, I run really fast, but then they'll feel bad if they're not running fast, because they're not living out what they've written on in their journal, but what they know is true and what is real to the feel is it feels good to run fast. Yeah? So that's a really good intermediary phrase that you can use. It feels good to XYZ. And I use this when I'm coming up with affirmations myself. And so, for example, you know, you get these generic ones on the internet and you pin them up all around your room and you're like, why isn't it working? It's because it doesn't feel right for you. It doesn't feel authentic and it doesn't feel possible. But if you can scale it back a little and change the language to something that does feel right, it's kind of going to be much more successful.
Yeah, I like that. That's really, because I think a lot of people, they might be watching this and thinking, all right, well, I sometimes feel stressed when I go to bed. I sometimes feel annoyed at the end of the day, and I just can't quite put this thing at the back of my head to bed. But that's a really good way, as like a segue to the ultimate where you want to get to. It's like, you know, say if you've, I use the coffee example. I've used the coffee example with you before. But if you've taken loads of things out of the car, you're trying to get in the house, you've got your hands full, you've got a coffee, you drop the coffee, and it splats everywhere, splats all over you. I've done this many times. And you might have lashed out, you might have got angry. You know, it's like you either say, oh, I could have not blown up and lost my rag, or I shouldn't have done this. It's like maybe the interjection, as you say there, it feels good when I am composed if something doesn't go my way. Is that quite a good example?
It's a perfect one.
Yeah.
Because you might not be composed straight away, and that's okay. Yeah. But it's already a win that you're aware of that. You're aware that you're not composed, and you know what you know that is real is it feels good to feel composed. So then you might take a moment to get there, but there's a transition. It links really nicely to our dealing with emotions. Yeah,
let's do it. So the next question I had queued up, funny enough for Hannah, was journaling and dealing with emotions. Could you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. And maybe one more thing to mention as well is when you're journaling, again, with like going back to the authenticity thing, is make the promise to yourself that you are the only person who's going to read this. Otherwise, you won't write real to the feel. You won't write.
Good call.
You won't write authentically if you're writing to an audience. So just write for you, and know that it's only you who's reading it. And you might not even go back. I don't read. I've got piles of books under my bed. I've never read them, but it feels good to have it out of my head. And
great call, really good call.
And I guess the three. So this is maybe something I would do if I'm feeling emotional. If I've got a big decision to make, Tony Robbins says he's a big advocate of working from the heart. He says that all big decisions should be made on paper. So journaling is key in those cases, and often big decisions come with big emotions. But it's difficult sometimes to pinpoint how you actually want to feel. When I'm talking to my one-to-one meditation or mentoring clients, I'm asking them what do you want to get out of this? How do you want to feel? What do you want out of your life? All those questions are pretty big, and most people don't really know. They don't know. So how do we get around that? The first question to ask or to consider is what we don't want. Because when we know what we don't want, that leads us to what we do want. So first up, what do you not want to feel? And just, by the way, this process isn't about pushing away feelings. It's about being aware of them. There are no good and bad feelings. All feelings are there for a reason. They're like our compass to guide us to what we do want. So when we're feeling negative emotion, how about we learn to celebrate it and see it as a gift, because it's leading us to what we do want. I was listening to a podcast by Laurie Gottlieb the other day. She's an awesome American psychiatrist, and she said, oh, I've got to remember what she said.
Yeah.
She said,
paraphrase. Let's get some more.
Paraphrase that. She said that when we are not aware of our emotions, or when we're not able to feel our emotions, it's like having a glitchy GPS. So tuning into our emotions is so key. Mm-hmm. We don't want to be numb to our emotions. We can't selectively numb. If we're numb to one thing, we're numb to everything. Mm. And then to what extent do we need to go to feel?
Yeah. Do you know what? It's so big, this. And I want to jump in on this because I need to stress how important it is. When we're talking about the gratitude and we're talking about writing the good stuff, that's not something to couple with, as Hannah's been mentioning, pushing away negative feelings, resisting, and trying to overwrite a negative feeling. Because in my experience, you always need to tell yourself it a lot of the time, and you need to be able to have a practice, or you need to be able to have something which you can revert to, where you come back to yourself and back to center, which is probably the most powerful place, and understand that you need to be open to the negative feelings and the negative emotions, and you have to welcome them in just like you would anything else. And this is a really, really, really big one, because for men especially, we feel a certain way negatively, or it might be depression, it might be anything, but the added layer on top of that is the fact that we don't accept how we're feeling, and then that just snowballs, it multiplies, it makes you feel worse. And I guess that's one massive part, and it's something I have to remind myself. If I have thoughts that I don't want, if I have repeating thoughts that I don't want, I've just got to say, all right, that's a thought, I'm all right with it. That's an emotion, I'm all right with it. It's just let it be, as the Beatles said. Because I think I've been in a lot of moments in my life where I've resisted it. I'm like, no, I don't want to feel like that. I don't want to feel like that. I want to be this, I want to be that. But it comes to that significance where you want to be a full-rounded human being. The full-rounded human being isn't just all elation, all euphoria, all gratitude. It's that and the other side of the coin as well. And you've got to be strong enough and brave enough. I'd say brave enough. People have a conception that it's brave to be silent about it and not deal with it and not talk about it. But I'm of the thinking that it's brave to feel it all as well, and to front up. That's the way that I see fronting up now, is to actually front up to what's actually going inside, what's happening in the internal world. And that's really important, and it goes into what I'm imagining, we're both going to talk about, Hannah, in terms of practices. But yeah, that's what I want to stress out. Just sort of, if you find yourself getting into that feeling, that space, just remember that it's all right to feel it. And just allow it. And you're on a shorter road back to feeling content and all the stuff that you do want to feel, if that makes sense.
100%. And it sounds easy just to say accept it. It's not, I promise you.
It's not easy. That's the battle of it.
But the more we practice the acceptance and the surrender, the easier it becomes. And there are meditations, incredible meditations, to help you get to a place of acceptance. But what we find when we do accept is that things soften. They soften, and going back to that thing of, you're not going to lose your emotions by practicing meditation and journaling, but what you will notice is that you ride the wave.
Yeah.
and there's a crest and a fall that happens a little bit quicker than when we're in the waves trying to fight them. They stay for much longer and it feels much harder and we're treading water, whereas if we can hop on a surfboard and ride them, we ride them out.
Such a good
we come
way
back into the shore and everything's okay again.
Until the next wave.
But we got this. We're strong. We've got the tools. So the questions are, firstly, what don't I want right now? That leads you to realize what you do want. We rotate the question. What do I want? And in knowing what we do want, we then have to ask what's getting in the way. And that's where the work lies. And something actually reminds me of a little cartoon of, which I'm sure you've all seen, a prisoner behind bars, and either side of the bars is empty space. Who's getting in the way of you getting what you want?
That's a big question.
You're in the way of getting what you want. Generally comes down to you. So I love that little analogy. Actually, you're free. You've got all that freedom. You've got that space. You just need to come back to it.
Like that. That's brilliant. There's some great questions. There's some really great questions. And when would someone use... Is that in a position of anxiety, stress, worry, or is it just something generally that they can go to every month? Or
so this is something like, if you're not at a point where you may be aware of when you'd use it, just come back to it each month and really make yourself check in a bit deeper. If you're in the midst of something big, sit down and journal it with those questions. It's really helpful because like I said, it shows you where the work is to be done. So I'm just trying to think of when I use it a lot. But so I was doing a workshop on heartfulness and I was feeling a little nervous. And so I sat down with these questions and got very clear on what I didn't want to feel and what I didn't want to happen in the experience, and then therefore what I did. And then I took some steps. There's some deeper steps which we don't have time to go through now, but there's a whole process of how you can get to what you do want, which I go through with my private clients. But you can get enough from these 3 questions. And then what's getting in the way, and from there, that's when you start to feel a little softer with whatever emotion you're sitting with. But it's a really great tool to begin to accept and sit with those emotions, because like we said, it's easier said than done. It's
the big practices. They are big practice, and you probably will feel that there's a little resistance to sitting down to actually do them, because it's very easy to just, I think a lot of the time, and myself included, find it easier to navigate by just being anxious, by being worried, by having all these thoughts, concepts, like conflicts sometimes, and there can be a resistance to actually sit down and work through it, and challenge yourself to actually work through that process. So you've got to be aware of that as well, I guess. That there's going to be a challenge, If meditation's a bicep curl for your mind, and gratitude's setting up the weights, then asking questions like this, sitting down, is a big wall sometimes that you've got to jump over on the assault course of the mind. Nice. That was so cool. So that's a big thing. Just want to shout here to Matt Morris. He is a sponsor, he's a supporter of Mentality, he's a really, really big believer in what we do, the message that we put out there, the message to go beyond stigma, the message to cultivate and to use mental health and to utilise mental health. He's over on the other side of the world. He is the director of Morris Infrastructure. So thank you, Matt, for being such a supporter. You are a good bloke as well too, mate, which always counts. Is there any more advice to give on the emotional side of things that you can think of, Hannah, before?
I don't want to overwhelm you guys with too many things.
Yeah.
And I know Stevie has a little tool that he maybe wants to share with you.
I've got a tool. Yeah.
I have meditations on your website and on my own as well. And so sometimes if you're not quite sure where to go and you're not really sure how you're feeling, come back to a meditation.
Yeah.
Check in with the heart. Notice what's going on in the body. Notice how those things feel. So less of a journaling exercise, but maybe you'd like to write that down, you know. For me, anxiety sits here in my body. For me, anger sits here. And when you write it down, firstly, you create that space, but also then you create that awareness so that next time you might notice it a little bit quicker before you're in that point of reacting and being in the experience, being angry or anxious. You feel that arising in your body earlier, so you're able to intercept it. You're able to ride that wave and pop up on your surfboard a little bit earlier rather than get knocked off by it.
I like it. So I'm going to go through a tool, guys, that I've used myself on many occasions, on many occasions. And this I got off the Don of Sports Psychiatry, Dr. Alan Johnston. So this is a tool that I'm going to give you the questions. I'm going to give you a little bit of a understanding of what to work through and when you're going to use it. So this is called Evidential Thinking. And how you'd work through this is by noticing a complex anxiety, a complex stress, worry, something that might not actually have a answer to land on completely. But this is probably the work to do, like we say, that assault course, those questions and answers that you might want to find, which is riding that wave of accepting how you're feeling, accepting that you're worried, accepting that you're stressed and concerned, and then getting to a bit more clarity in your mind so you can free up that consuming thought, worry, overthinking pattern that you've got. Chris O'Connor led me to this sort of concept of how to, he was obviously co-hosting the podcast, for anyone that doesn't know. But sometimes it can be like you're in an MMA ring or UFC ring, for ease. And say you're fighting someone who's really good at wrestling, or someone like Khabib, who once you start the fight, he gets you on the floor, and that's exactly what you don't want to end up getting on the floor. But as soon as he gets you on the floor, they can do anything they want to you. And basically, you don't want to end up there, because how I see that is a thought that gets you, and it concerns you, worries you. You think about it more. It keeps coming back. You try and resist it, but that inevitably makes them lock on tighter, or lets the thought lock on tighter and do a little bit more damage. So that's the best way that I wanted to explain that for you. But the process is called Evidential Thinking, as I say, by Dr. Alan Johnston. So you would write out the worry or concern that you've got that doesn't have a bullseye for where it's going to lead you to. So that might be, I'm worried that my boss doesn't respect me after a few interactions that you've had in the week, the last few days, whatever. You would rate how you're feeling. So it might be a 6 out of 10, it might be a 7 out of 10 for how strong that worry or concern is. You would write down how you're feeling. Might be stressed, might be worried, might be anxious, might be nauseous. It could be any of these things. You ask yourself if it's acceptable. Is it reasonable to feel like this? Probably is. As Hannah's mentioned, the emotions are sort of part of our compass and the part of being a human being. So you'd sort of ask yourself that. And then you'd probably ask, or you would ask, what evidence is there supporting this worry? So there might be evidence in your mind that your boss looked at you funny, didn't pay much attention to you yesterday, seemed short with you, that might be something that's maybe sparked that worry off. You'd then ask what evidence is going against this worry or concern. You might think, well, we had a great chat 2 weeks ago and she said she believed in me, or he believed in me, or whatever. Like, I got promoted last year, or, you know, all these different things that you can sort of weigh up and lay evidence. This is just literally taking a thought out and just weighing up the evidence for and against. And by the way, it's not to get you to any certain outcome. It's a process to say, okay, well, I've actually looked at it, I've understood it a bit better, I've paid attention to this thought, I've given the thought the time it deserves and the worry time it deserves. So you'd go through that, evidence supporting the worry, evidence against the worry. And then you'd say, why is this worry, concern, thought, emotion helpful? It might be helpful because it's going to make you work harder next week. It might be helpful because you might want to check in with your boss. You might want to speak to him. You might want to speak to someone else about it. You might want to ask for advice on something. That thought does have a helpful medium to it. And then you might say, why is it not helpful? It might be that you can't get on with your day because it's consuming you. You might feel anxious. You might feel nervous. Whatever it's bringing up for you, for why it's not helpful. And then this is the good part about it. So whatever you've landed on, whatever you feel like after weighing up that thought, taking that thought out and examining it, what are you going to do about it? So there's many different options for that. You know, only yourself would know in that context and example, but you get a bit of a plan. Get a bit of a plan for what to do about that concern, and it's not just bumbling around in your head for no reason anymore. And then you would rate yourself out of 10 again and sort of feel if that's made any headway, feel like if your anxiety's got better, or if you've got a bit of clarity on what to do next. You know, because you want to take action. You want to take action from this awareness and vulnerability and you know, you don't just want to just sit in it. You want to do something about it. And then you'd sort of cut. You'd just say, right, boom, done that. I've got the plan. I've thought about it enough. I've registered what's going on enough for me. I can get on with my day. Or you may feel like you can get on with your day a little bit better now you've got a plan. So that's the template for evidential thinking. And I wanted to share it because there's many times in my life with the injuries I've had, the ups and downs I've had, where that thought has took me to the ground and it's not letting me get up. And for 2 or 3 days, it's something that doesn't sit easy with me. So I'll work through it. I'll accept it and work through it. And as we say, get to a bit of clarity on it, I guess. So that's the evidential thinking. I can send a template out for that if you didn't quite get all of the points. But as I say, you can ask me, you can ask Hannah for any of the stuff that we've spoke about on the journaling practice, why it's beneficial, what the content of that is, and I guess how to think about it as well, because there's a lot of framing that goes into it. Like if someone says you should do journaling, it's better for you, you sort of need to know why, don't you? You need to know like the points for it. But yeah, we might be all right there, Hannah.
Feel free to email across afterwards, or if anything crops up, because journaling is quite a personal practice. So sometimes you go away and something crops up and yeah, it takes time to process it. So if it is that you go away and something crops up, feel free to email myself or Stevie. You can find me on social media at Composure Active. So pop me a message on there as well if something
amazing
comes out of this. But yeah, thanks for
amazing.
the opportunity
I enjoyed
to
that.
chat. Loved it.
That was brilliant. I enjoyed that. I love doing this. I love doing this shit. But thank you guys for joining. What was the name of the podcast we've got here? Laurie Gottlieb. Laurie Gottlieb, and she was talking to something called I think it was the Creative Podcast. But if you type in Laurie Gottlieb, LORI
Gottlieb, Gottleib,
Yeah.
on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. She'll pop up. And she's written an epic book. It's called Maybe You Should Talk to Somebody, and it's literally book of the year for me.
Right, okay, boom. Maybe you should talk to somebody. Just put Laura Gottlieb in on Google, it'll churn it out for you. It already knows what you're going to ask anyway. All right, brilliant. Cool. Cheers, guys. Thank you very much for joining. Thank you for watching, guys. And we will see you on the next one.